The Survivor Specialists are back, and today I am joined by Bradley from Survivor Ghost Island, and we're going to dig deeper into Survivor 47, episode number 3. Man, I used to have Bradley on this podcast nonstop. He would just keep showing up. We even did it. We did a podcast once, me, him, an intern in his office in LA. That was an interesting experience. And now here we are for the first time in what feels like years, finally jumping in and talking to each other again. How long has it been?
A long time. Yeah.
I think it might be
season I think usually I'm not friendly enough to people, so then I got banned for a while, but I'll be nice, maybe.
That's tonight. What happens. Yeah, he's over here. I swear he's drinking water. He's not going to get meaner as the night goes on, right?
No.
A bastion of positivity sitting across from me right now. We'll see what you can do, right? Because you're the old school player now. You played before season 41. So, you have to have some just like inherent hate for the new era, because that just seems to be what happens to everybody pre-40, but here we are.
Bit. Yeah.
So how you enjoying 47 so far?
I think it's good. It's entertaining so far. I like Sue. It's always good when we have a cougar on the show. But otherwise, everybody seems fun. It's been entertaining to watch. I don't watch that often anymore, but I have watched this one so far, and we're off to a good start, I think.
Yeah, there was one of those when I asked you about this like a couple months ago, and we were in LA, and I asked you about it. And you're like, just get me early in the season in case it sucks.
Well, the problem is right now it's 90-minute episodes. You get behind, and suddenly it takes hours and hours to catch up. And sometimes I don't have it in me to sit there and watch 5 hours of it. The show's not nearly as fun to watch after you've been on it, I don't think, especially when you sucked on it. As it was beforehand. So, sitting and watching Survivor all day sounds like work. So when I get behind, that's usually when I give up for the season.
It does make me laugh. You say that because I'm currently doing an Australian Survivor watch for our patrons, where I'm doing at least 3 episodes a week. And all of those episodes are like an hour 15, hour 20 post commercials, dude. Like that's without commercials. It is nuts. And like I was on an airplane and I was like, this plane ride isn't long enough for me to watch 2 episodes of Australian Survivor. Like what is happening? And I'm flying from Florida to New Jersey. Like there's no reason for that. So anyway, I get it once you fall behind, but I try not to fall behind.
At least they have good accents too. I mean, we don't have that on American Survivor. Everyone just sounds normal and mildly uneducated. So it's kind of a bummer.
Here we are. Hey, I don't know. You hear enough people on Australian Survivor say lollies instead of candy, and you start to be like, are they more intelligent than us? But anyway.
Oh, no, I don't think they're more intelligent. They just sound better.
They make the word lolly sound smart.
It's like how you can watch Love Island UK, but then you watch Love Island US, and you're like, wow, these people, I don't know how they get to work in the morning. Although I don't think they work. So,
I mean, that's how they get to work, man. They got to open up their Instagram and that's about it. Not us, man. Not us. Anyway, here we are. Let's talk a little bit about this. Now I put up here as the 3 topics. We try to do like a little bit more topic based for this. We can loosey goosey. I put up winner potential because I feel like people want to hear about that. I got a lot of comments about like, who do you think is going to win? Because I feel like this is the first time in Survivor history that the first 3 tribal councils, a different tribe went to each. So first time ever. That's pretty epic. Yeah. And then I talked about forced hands, which got a text from Bradley being like, what the hell does that mean? Which means he didn't listen to my podcast last night where I ranted for a solid 20 minutes about forced hands.
Yeah, guilty as charged there.
and then I put Rome in here because I do feel like Rome is a casting choice. And I'll tell you the one thing that you guys will learn about Bradley, I think, in this episode, if you don't know this about him. Bradley loves his chaotic energy casting. Like me and him would talk about this, and I used to be such a proponent of, no, we need super fans, we need this, we need that. And he would sit there and be like, nope, the most entertaining people from Survivor Ghost Island didn't know what the hell they were doing when they walked on that island. So here we are.
Yeah, maybe that's at some point we could dive into that. You've kind of had the death of recruits, and I think in a way it's actually made Survivor not as good of a game. But that could be a topic for later.
Well, let's talk about something that I actually wasn't even thinking about with this. Let's talk about Asia, because Asia being in the Rob has a podcaster. So she's over there, she does that, and she gets recognized by Teeny pretty much right away. I did in my after show for the patrons this week. I talked about how I don't think that she went because of anything to do with Rob as a podcast. I literally just think she had the chaos of the Rome tribe and not being in as tight as she thought, all of that. What do you think about Asia, and what do you think about the fact John Lovett also went home first? We gonna be getting podcasters on the season anymore, or is this it?
I think it's simple. It's somewhat similar to what happened where you had a few super fans back when there was maybe one a season, and they did really well. You've got the Spencer, you've got the Cochran, they made it a long way, and then suddenly everyone was like, "Wait a second," and it swung in the opposite direction, and they started going home earlier and earlier. And now I think for the most part they're all super fans, so it's a little different, but I think you have that with a podcaster. When everyone's a super fan, who are the super fans of the super fans? They're the podcasters.
Mhm.
In John's case, I think it's curious. I don't think he went home because of who he is and what his podcast is. But if I'm out on that beach, you have to know they're going to slut him out every single week that he's on that show. I think he was on the Late Show and on and on and on talking about Survivor. He's in all the promos. He's stealing your airtime. And I don't know how many first time players think of that. I think you tend to think about that afterwards. But I'm sure that starts to factor in, right? You naturally pick up on people who's good with their words, who says quippy things, who's interesting, who does Jeff call on all the time, and they become natural targets, even if it's just mild, because so early in the game, why do people go home? You have to be truly out of this world annoying, I think, to go home at the very, very beginning for something other than just a random something. Maybe you picked your people wrong. You're picking who you're going to work with on day one. What happens when they have a meltdown on day two and you go, oh god, I'm with a basket case? It doesn't work. And so sometimes I think the early boots kind of get in that situation, and I think maybe she fell into that a little bit more. Now I have to imagine everybody knew of Rob Has a Podcast, even if they weren't super fans. Before you go on the show, far enough in advance, what do? You start Googling. So I think that could have been, a little bit of it. But again, I mean, Rome is all over the map. He's brilliant television, but to play with someone like that, I think would be very challenging. And it's really just an anybody but me when it's your first tribal too. I mean, even though we're three tribals into the game, that tribe is at their first one,
Mhm.
and you don't really know where anything stands until you've gone through one, and then you start to catch on. What did you notice? Because they're studying the game on TV and listening to podcasts, and then there's playing the game. And I think Jeff has pulled back the curtain a little bit, definitely since I played, but there's still just a lot of unknowns. There's things that you start to realize, what are we doing this for? Why did they say this? And then you connect the dots after the fact. And when you haven't been to tribal anymore, you have none of that advantage. It lasts forever. The questions are bouncing around. It's much more chaotic and random than it appears on TV. And I think, something that I struggled with is I came in, I said, no, this is how it is on TV. This is how it is, when I, would listen to RHAP and stuff before I went on the show, and so I don't think this is actually happening because I didn't see this or whatever. And then you realize that like everything's happening and it's just what makes it on TV. So I think possibly, she had a little bit of that going for it too, where you start to think you know what's going on because you've studied it and you've podcasted it, and then it's not exactly what's actually going on.
Well, and I think a lot of the times too, because I've been doing this now for way too many years, and you were in my baby stages. That's what's scary at this point. Like, you were only my 6th season of podcasting, and now here we
Yeah.
are on my 17th season of podcasting. And
Well,
so
it's harder to get on these days. More
dude,
competition.
I'm telling you, but yeah, it is. But the thing is, when you look at this from Asia's perspective, when you're podcasting about it, what you do is you essentially create stories of what you think is happening, and then you commit to those stories. Like, during Ko-Rong, I committed to the fact that Michelle was going to win that season early on, and then that has to be my shtick the rest of the time. If
Yeah.
you get out there and you start playing the game, you might start to get into your own head a little bit about what's going on. I also think, and granted, I'm not on the island with Rome, so I don't really know what's going on, but I do think she took Rome for granted here. I think that she assumed that everybody else had a bad relationship with Rome. And I actually think the 3 people who were voted off on this season so far all very much underestimated one person and didn't get in with that person. Although John did try to get in with Andy, just ultimately because he got in with Andy, he couldn't get in with anybody else. So then he tries to
Well,
spin it.
yeah.
And
Right.
but if you think about it, like, TK goes home because he doesn't think Sue and Caroline can put a thought together. Asia was already assuming, well, everybody's just over Rome, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a danger in thinking you understand the narrative and without realizing, right, what is on TV is such a simplified narrative. In some cases, it's one narrative. There are so many on the beach, and this is something that I was terrible at and didn't catch on with, that like there are 800 things going on, even though when you watch the episode, it looks like maybe there's only 2 or 3 ideas floating around. So you get in your head 2 or 3, and you're good. I got this. I know what's happening. And then pretty soon you go home.
Are you setting yourself up with like the self-hate here so that you can just start really firing at the players here when we get into the second half of the podcast? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, of course. No. I don't know. I mean, I'm still salty. I'm not going to deny that, right? It's been, God, 7 years, 7.5. It's still frustrating. I mean, I imagine just for a second, and even harder, right? When so many of these people are such big fans, it's devastating when you go on and you don't do as well as you imagine you do, because no one sits on the couch and imagines they're going to suck. And then you get on there and none of it doesn't go your way. And so it's kind of tough to get through.
Yeah. And I'm assuming Asia, I mean,
admit.
I feel like Asia is really still going through it. So I wanted to talk about her first because I do feel like she's still going through it. And it sucks. I mean, the other thing is like you get the pressure of the survivor community on your back, even if you don't actually have it. I feel like she's gotten way more support than anything, but you're always going to get those people who aren't fans of RHAP or any of that stuff who are like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then they kind of like, they see Asia and they roll their eyes and they say, oh my God, she gets on because she podcasts, blah, blah. And then they want to see her blow up. I remember when Max Dawson played season 30, he said, more people want me to fail than want me to succeed right now. Because I've just talked about it nonstop. And that's a shame of our society where we all just root for each other's failure. But I'm sure Asia's going through it. But at the same time, I don't know. Would you rather work with Rome? Let's talk about Rome. Would you rather work with Rome or would you rather work with Asia? What move did Teeny and Keyshawn make the right move last night?
I think they did. I think they made the right move because he's so all over the place, but he's also, which is a good and a bad thing, right? Bad thing that he's unpredictable. Good thing, he just can't keep his story straight, and he's not very good at hiding things. It's like, I think it was Asia, right, who says, he was looking really hard for the idol, and then all of a sudden he stopped looking and didn't look again, right? And it's like somebody like Asia, she's going to be smart enough to know, I need to do this a little more covertly. So even if she's with you and could help you pull off a big move, in terms of a foot soldier to work with, Rome's going to be easier because he's easier to read.
Yeah.
Even if your read is he's going to be crazy, at least that's what you're getting. With Asia, there's a question of how long is she with me before she's going to be against me. With Rome, I think you see him turning on you and see him coming against you from a mile away, and you can anticipate it, and then I don't think he's that strategic.
Well, and also what was interesting about how this episode went down is Teeny and Keyshawn really decided who went home here. They just made it seem like Rome was in on the plan with them. And they did give Rome one of the two people he wanted. He wanted either Asia or Saul. He didn't care which one. And Teeny and Keyshawn made that move. But right now, Teeny and Keyshawn have Rome thinking he's the king of the castle, which works, for them. And I think it is a good gameplay because, like you said, if Rome wants to go against you, he has the steal a vote. So if he steals a vote next episode, who's voting with Rome? Are we really buying that Genevieve is so on board with Rome that there's no way she votes against him? I don't buy that. And so even if he steals the vote at the next tribal, they can make it 3-2 if he goes too crazy.
We wouldn't really actually know what Genevieve is thinking, but
she's not as purple as people are acting, man. She's got 3 confessionals in 3 episodes. I think she already has more than Chelsea, and she had the whole thing.
I think she already has more than I had in 3 episodes, if we're being honest.
Yeah, we didn't hear from you until you started playing A+.
No, I would like a little, footnote there to say that, my episodes were like 5 minutes long, and these ones are 3 days long each.
And you kept winning. It was, we had to just keep hearing from the low. I mean, that was the problem.
Yeah, well, but then I became a low. And then it all went downhill. But no, I don't think she is. I would be really curious as to what, where her head's at. What kind of game does she think she's playing? Because, of course, when you're out there, everyone's the star of their own show. So I'm sure she thinks she's doing stuff. she seems to be doing stuff. It doesn't seem like we're in a situation where we have someone that's just truly sitting there on the beach. She's on the sit-up bench looking for an idol or a clue or something. She's playing the game. So why aren't we seeing her play the game?
Yeah.
And right now we have chaotic characters. Maybe those chaotic characters aren't going to last as long. I mean, we have to remember we're trying to tell a compelling, interesting TV show as well, which is
the most important part that people do forget.
Right.
And what gets me with Rome is Rome's coming on the heels of Q here, where Q last season was pretty much this amount of chaos, but then he makes it all the way to final six. So it's like he just gets to be chaos and he's the easy target and stuff like that. But they didn't get to watch Q play. They didn't get to watch the way that the season 46 cast navigated with Q all the way. At least they saw some of it, but they didn't see all of it. But I guess what's interesting to me is Survivor is clearly starting to look for these types of personalities. They're starting to look for and this always comes across as,
but they always kind of have, no?
I don't feel like in the early portion of the new era, they were casting these people who were.
Yeah, I will agree with you. I think the casting has gotten a little more dialed in terms of getting characters back. We have had characters, if you think of the Survivor you watched as a kid, and all throughout the old era, and whatever you want to call it, old school, then new school of the old bunch, whatever it is, before 40.
Yeah.
You have these big characters. I mean, I would argue you've got Abby Marie as a big character. You've got plenty of other people, and you had Chris Noble on my season, and then we start to see a lack of this, and it wasn't everybody's kind of kumbaya and it's all great, and then now we're slowly getting, hey, these people are what makes Survivor. You need the personalities, you need people that are going to do and say interesting shit. And I don't know if that was a switchover between the casting team, and the casting director, or if it's, Jeff went too far in one direction and now they're going back. But I totally agree with you. These are the people in certain ways that make the show, Nora's another good example.
Nora's a good example. I mean, and then you look at what happened in the new era. 41, I don't think we had one. 42, I don't think we had one. 43, I don't really think we had one. And then 44, we got Carolyn, Jam, Carson all at one time. And I mean, especially Carolyn, Carolyn is coming out there and they're saying, okay, we've never seen somebody like Carolyn play. Like people would compare her to Nora and stuff. She had a lot more game than Nora did. Like Carolyn was playing. She just, she was with Jam, who she couldn't beat. But I always think about the thing with the bird cage and whatever. I mean, it was great. And then you get to 45 and it was almost like it flipped the switch, flipped the switch. Sorry, I can't speak. It flipped the switch in casting. And they said, Carolyn's the most popular player we've had in years. We need to cast more like that. And that's where you get Q, and that's where you get Rome. And I will say this about Rome right now. What does Rome tweet this morning? What's up, our RHAP community? That's what he tweets. And it's him walking with the torch as the credits roll, smiling. And it just says, what's our good morning, our HAP community. And I think that's so funny because he does not care. Like he's a talk personality. He's done his esports thing. He's used to that. Do you think Al Michaels, every time he gets done calling a Thursday night football game, is like, I got tweeted at that I was a dumbass who doesn't know how to speak anymore? No, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And I think Rome right now is perfect for TV because you are watching last night's episode and you were going, my God, I hate that guy, or, oh my God, I can't get enough of this guy. And there is no in between. And that's how it should be.
No, correct. I mean, the whole point of casting, and this is what my casting producer said to me when you go through it, said, the whole goal of this is to elicit a reaction from the audience. It doesn't matter if it's negative. It doesn't matter if it's positive. Everybody needs to elicit, or we need people that cause reactions. And that's what you have. And I think for a little while, we had too many people that just did not cause a reaction. And I'm excited to see it going back in that other direction. Because that's what makes the show. This show is still, no matter how many twists and turns and stupid advantages or disadvantages you put in the game, it is still a story of, a group of people and how do they interact and how interesting are they? That's what makes the TV show. It's wild that they got away from that, but it's exciting that they're going back to it, I guess, is the diplomatic way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy when you think about the first three boots on this season. You got John Lovett, who is one of the most famous podcasters in the world right now. Then you follow it up with TK, who looks like he could kill everybody with his pinky. And then you follow that up with a podcaster who podcasts about Survivor and reality TV. These are not the three people you would expect to go home. And that's a good thing for the show. When you can't remember the pre-merge cast, that's bad. Now, sometimes in the case of a season like Ghost Island, you remember the pre-merge cast so well, you forget that there was a post-merge, and there's only 2 people that you're paying attention to the entire post-merge, or 3, maybe 4, but there's not enough. I think like there's too many seasons in the new era where the pre-merge was just like, I can't really remember what was going on there. Oh, who was that again? What season? Were they on 43 or 44? I feel like that you mix it together a lot more. Whereas on this season right now, you are going to remember this as the season of those first 3 boots. I'd put them up against the first 3 boots of any season. You are going to remember this. This is Kleihege on levels of, what do you call it? David Sampson, Garrett, Bryce. Like, this is that level of what the hell did I just watch? And this, I'm going to remember this boot order right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen, who's going to finish out the pre-merge, because as you said, right, it can totally fall flat or not just flat. You end up with a lot of people that should have gone home that didn't. If we lose a couple more key players before the merge, we could be looking at a fairly sleepy post-merge, which would be a concern. In a way, it's fun to see when the bigger players or more compelling players go out early, but then you have to watch the rest of the season. So it's
you did that to us. I'll never forget when you did that to us. When you said, "Hey, I'm going to vote out every compelling character on this season."
Oh yeah,
and then
I did do that.
Then you turn around and get yourself voted out too.
I mean, was Brendan a compelling character though?
I love Brendan.
I'm just
so
kidding.
Much.
I love Brendan.
I love Brendan, and I know you do too. And I'm sure he's going to listen to this and just listen to your. What did he call you? He called it the Squidward voice. I just don't need to listen to his Squidward voice. That's what he says. So,
oh boy,
what a guy. But I'm sure he's not watching Survivor now that his daughter just won like D2 national like scholar athlete of the year or whatever the hell it was. He's got better things.
Yeah. Right now, he's an athletic director these days, fighting a war amongst the janitors. So big things.
You go on Survivor, your dreams come true, everybody. That's all I'm going to say.
It is kind of true, and you end up with some pretty cool friends too.
Yeah.
The underrated part of going on Survivor, or I don't know if it is underrated, but it's one of the good parts.
One day I'll get invited to the Orlando get-togethers for the Ghost Island pre-merge. No. I'm close enough. One day it'll happen. I'll just
if Wendell can't get in, you're definitely not getting in.
Wendell, that's the only club Wendell's not invited to. I love that.
Oh yeah, every time we go, people text, like, "Oh, let us know when you're doing it." It's like, no, we're not going to let you know. You lasted too long. It was your fault. You could have gone home. You could have gone to Australia, gone to the bar with us every day for a month, and then you could go to Orlando every year. But no, you decided to play more Survivor.
See, so you're talking about this. I actually saw a tweet that reminds me of what you're saying right now. People were like, "So Asia's was voted out 3rd, but now she's on a pre-jury trip with one of the biggest podcasters in the world, and she's a podcaster. So who's the real winner here?" And that seems to be what you're saying about Wendell might have his $1 million check. He might have played Survivor 2 times, but you get to go to the Orlando party every
year. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would have loved to have made it farther, and I still, in this moment would. But when you're looking at it this many years later, what do I have? I still have the incredible adventure. Now I have like these incredible friends. So in a way, I did win more than $1 million. And, I can go make $1 million. I'm not worried about that, but where are you going to go find friends, that you went through something like that with, and then got to get out all your differences over the course of a month with no cell phones and couldn't get away from each other. And now we're just like stuck with each other.
I love that. I
mean, we've voted a couple of our members out, but other than that, we're down to the core.
I do hope that I am just going to say, I do hope that as people move forward, they start to have that personality, because one of the people I've become really close with in the community from the new era is Brandon Donlin. And I don't think anybody could have had a worse experience on Survivor. He has a panic attack, is only saved because Hannah quits, and then gets voted out again anyway. And I feel like he's handled it as well as you can for somebody who goes home in the 2nd episode of the season. And I feel like you have to have that. And like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, Asia, come on, like get through on the other side." I don't know if I'd be able to. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going out to play the game, you got to realize that somebody's going to get 18th and somebody's going to get 17th. And, you can either handle it like Brandon Donlin or Maddie Pomia, or you can handle it like some of the people who are just like, I'm disappearing from the community.
I
And I
mean,
don't
or you
want to
can
know
handle it
anything.
like I did. I mean, we're, in the moment, I didn't handle it so well. I mean, it was,
Oh, your stomach didn't
it,
handle it so well, right?
it
That
was,
was really
well, this is true. Yeah. Yeah.
somebody go listen to the
Huh.
tell-all where Bradley describes what his stomach issues were like.
I think my stomach is better now. But yeah, no, I mean, I didn't handle it well, right? It's like your dream is crushed, but you get over it eventually, mostly.
Mostly. Mostly.
Mostly, yeah,
Mostly.
not
We'll see.
100%. I mean, I don't I don't sit around thinking of like, "Oh, yeah, dude, am I gonna play again or not?" Right? That ship has long since sailed, and I'm okay with that. And I think from a like a mental and physical perspective, hey, thanks.
I'm gonna leave that
And
up there. Jay Burn
from a
Aquatic
mental
says
and
if
physical
Bradley doesn't
perspective,
play
I don't
another
think
season,
it's
travesty.
the healthiest thing to do to play again. But at the same time, like you call me, I'm 10 minutes from LAX. I'm at the airport. I can make the flight to Fiji tonight.
Yeah.
So it's kind
Yeah.
of an addiction, as Ben Wagman said. It's like a drug.
Yeah.
And one hit is all it takes, and you're always looking for another one. So,
Well, and it's funny.
it's
It's
kind of
funny
true.
to like when you and I used to get together a lot before I moved to the other side of the country. Every time we got together, it was like, yeah, we'll talk about something else tonight. Like, I'm over this, I'm over that. And then as soon as we got 15 minutes in the conversation, all you're
Yeah,
talking about is Survivor stuff. And it's really
yeah,
hard. Like when you're in the community, man, it's a big defining portion. So I hope Asia, what
yeah,
all that's to say, I hope Asia comes out of it okay. And Rome right now, just to like end the circle here on Rome, I feel like he is loving the attention. He does not care if you like him. He does not care if you hate him. He just loves that
yeah.
you know who Rome is. And
No, he
honestly,
wants
that's what I want on the
everyone to be
show.
looking at him and fascinated with him, and it makes good TV.
Mhm.
It's like Noble. He was a spectacle to behold, and it was great TV. Um, so more power to him. He's highly entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, give me interesting. I like to say the dull need not apply.
Hmm.
Um, so it's good. And I'll also add, Phil, I think we remarked last time when you were here in LA a few months ago, that we actually spent most of the time not talking about Survivor, which might have been a first.
It was. That was literally when
Yeah,
we got together. We almost ran out of things to talk about. And then we drank enough old fashions that we didn't run out of things to
yeah,
talk about. But
yeah.
that's what happens.
We can always go
Um,
back to Survivor.
Always get back to Survivor. I think it was very
Mhm.
brief conversations about Survivor. It also helped that we hadn't seen each other in like 4 years. So if we did that soon,
Yeah,
maybe that's what would happen. But
yeah,
let's talk about these forced hands that you were all concerned about here. Let's talk about this. So when I say the
yeah,
forced hands, I called it last night. It's the gun to your head moment of you have to reach in. We are not giving you a choice.
yeah.
You
Yep.
have to do this. Has this ever worked in Survivor history? Why do you think they keep going back to this? Do you find it entertaining? Because I know you like to look at things from like the production lens of no, I get it. Don't give me recruits, don't give me fans, like whatever. Is there a positive to
Yeah.
this that I'm missing?
I mean, the positive is that you're not going to lose a segment where someone's given an option and they say no because it's the logical or rational thing to do. And I think that's why they're doing it. I just, and you touch on say, right, give me the recruits. What do I mean when I say that? Give me the interesting characters. Don't give me the gaming robots that have always wanted to be on Survivor. You used to have to be an interesting super fan to make it on the show. Now you can just talk about, uh, all the advantages and how you know everything. So I don't love them, but I understand why they do them. At the same time, I still think it's so curious. I do. I'll give it to them, and I'll agree. You have to reinvent the game. We're 100 million episodes or seasons into the show, and also, if you look at it from the lens of the people making the show, I mean, everybody wants some progress. Even if I do the same thing at work every day, I want to see some progress in what I'm doing professionally. And we have to remember this is a career for a lot of these people. How do you justify, asking for more money and things if you haven't tried something new in the last 20 years? So I understand it from that perspective. But I just think at the end of the day, what carries a season, what is memorable? It's still not these forced moments of, someone lost 2 votes. It's this person was a wackadoodle, or, these two people just didn't get along, and that caused an issue and caused this other thing to happen or this person to go home. Those are the moments that make Survivor what Survivor is and why it has lasted so long. So it's frustrating. I've come to terms with it. I understand it. Um, I don't know if it's partially a cover up with you get people that know too much about the game that maybe you're dealing with too many people that would say no because that's the rational thing to do. This is
That's
easier
different
when you
than
had people who
Rome's not
had
saying no.
never seen Survivor before they were on it, right? I mean, I had a whole bunch of those people on my season. They didn't have a clue what was happening. I mean, they'd be like, "What's the merge?" It's like,
Mhm.
well, that's what's going to happen the day after I get voted out. But you know, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's just people would be a little more cautious or a little more strategic with it, and so they force them to do it, or they're genuinely worried that they're not going to have anything interesting to show. But I'm struck by watching it, especially now that it's 90 minutes. There's so much more of what I find fascinating in the episode.
Mhm.
Now, of course, there's also more strategy, which I think just is too much at a certain point. But like, yeah, I think we see the tribe that's on Malolo, the god awful beach,
Where
the
is
Yellow
that, Bradley?
Tribe.
Do you know where that is?
It's the
You have a
Yellow Tribe.
don't you have a map behind you? Isn't that what you're supposed to be
It
pointing?
is, yeah. This is right where Survivor's filmed, right there.
That is a map
Um,
of Fiji. Anyway, continue.
yeah, it is a map of Fiji of the islands from Survivor. But so you you have the segment where they're talking about how they can't sleep and they're trying to rearrange the bamboo and stuff. And I think part of that, or they're talking about the fish, and then you've got Rome saying, basically eating all the fish because he caught the fish, and like that to me is more compelling than going and being forced to put your hand in a bag and pull something
Mhm.
out. But maybe that's just me. Um, but I think that like that's the element that's interesting. It's the interpersonal dynamic. That's what's always interested me about Survivor. And I feel like that's nobody says what's your favorite part about Survivor. Oh, I like the advantages,
Yeah.
or yeah, it's you either like the people or you like the challenges or some combination of both. And so I think you lose that. You lose
Ye
some of that kind of holistic or just organic
Mhm.
interaction.
Well, it's fun to have you on this podcast now because you were on a season where we saw the non-forced version of this, and we saw a character get to make a decision that ultimately backfired, and that was Chris Noble, who you've mentioned a bunch of times. He goes to
Yeah.
Ghost Island. He wins the challenge to first of all, he gets the decision, do you want to go do this? Like you said, he
Yeah.
doesn't know Survivor. So of course he's like, hell yes, let's go.
Yeah.
He
Sure.
gets he gets the idol that says, okay, you have this for one tribal. Do you want to take another shot? And he could just take the one tribal idol and be saved for that first tribal. And instead he says, no, I'm going to play it again. He gets an additional tribal council out of his idol. He ends up going home at the next tribal council because he had that
Yeah.
additional tribal council to use his idol. If he only had the one tribal council idol,
Yeah.
he plays it and he's safe and he blindsides everybody and your whole season is different. But I think that's
Yeah.
what's fascinating is that's memorable because Chris Noble made that decision and we get to have the conversation after of if he would have done this, if he would have done that, if he would have done this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't remember that it was Matt Blankenship who lost 2 votes the other day because that happened and it was like, oh, well, he didn't do that. That happened to him, but he didn't do that. And I've become so numb to that that I don't even think about it anymore. Like to me, I can't remember that, oh, Matt got screwed by a twist because who hasn't gotten screwed by a twist at this point? So
Sure.
I don't like the forced hands because there's no water
Yeah.
cooler talk from a forced hand. There's water cooler talk from, can you believe that this person voted out this person or this
Well,
person did this? That's better.
yeah, but and then on top of that, right? Let's go back to Noble for a second. Let's say his idol was only good for one tribal. Then he plays it and doesn't go home.
Mhm.
Where he was convinced by the people on his tribe on the show with him that he was safe enough that he didn't need to play it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's good TV. That's what we remember. It's just not, yeah, as you said, it's not somebody that had to play it and then they're safe and then they're vulnerable again. I don't know though. If you make it good for one, they have to play it and then they can rebury it on the beach. And then somebody else has a chance to find it. And so I don't know if that's part of the logic and the
Mhm.
thinking. of just more, more, more. But there's an art to less is more. But I think the problem when you take the less is more approach, especially with Survivor, is if your cast doesn't land and the cast doesn't come to deliver, you have no show.
You're screwed.
And I do know this is unrelated. Talking a friend of mine is an executive producer on another big reality show, and I was talking to him one time, and he was saying it's really, really difficult to cast these days because everybody wants to go on reality TV because they want to be an influencer. Nobody's going on for the right reasons, and this happens to be a dating show, that he produces, and it was we can't find anybody that actually wants to date. I mean, they all run around and make out and smash each other, but like that's not the story we're trying to sell to Iowa, or Nebraska, and so that's not what we're trying to sell to the viewers. And I think there's a problem with that. I think you're either going to get the people that just want to go on Survivor to be, famous enough, which is hilarious because you don't get that many followers.
No.
Or you've got these super fans that are going to play it strategically to a fault, and sometimes the strategic decision is the boring decision.
Yeah.
And so you do have to pump these things into the show.
And I think though, like there's other ways to do things that are exciting. I go back to Carolyn with the birdcage. She wasn't forced to do that, and she was given an option. And she went back and took the idol and didn't know what to do, and she put an X in there. And her whole tribe thought that meant something had developed with this idol. Like, what's going to happen? This Blair Witch looking thing is in there. Like, what is going on? Carolyn made that decision, and nobody would have put their money on Carolyn to be the one to come up with something like that. And that is so fun because you're going to remember that. And I understand what you're saying. And you know what? I totally agree. I feel like the casting process has to be getting harder because at this point, everybody who is under the age of 30 years old is getting pretty damn good at talking into a camera because so much of their life is just talking into a camera. There's very few people who are camera shy now. Like you have to think about, you used to get people who go out on the show and for the first 2 or 3 episodes, they were nothing because they weren't comfortable. And then all of a sudden they would start to, but Coach was one. Like Coach in Tocantins doesn't come out as Psycho Coach off the bat. It takes him a little bit to become comfortable with the cameras rolling. And that's a guy who is born for TV. I mean, he's incredible. And so I think that nowadays people have gotten better at it. But then what happens is it's not the TV and the camera part of it that starts to hurt them. It's the actual physical part of it, because how uncomfortable are people really most often these days? Like we live in, a country where it is such a wealthy country. And a lot of the people who are playing Survivor, either they were wealthy growing up or they've become to the point where they are better off now, like they're not starving. And so what happens when you get this discomfort? We're not putting people who dig graves like James Clement on the show anymore. We're putting people who it's like,
or we're putting a couple of them as a token.
Kyle is the token this year as a construction worker.
Which we got to give Kyle a shout out. He lives in Northeast Michigan. That's where I spend a good chunk of the year. So I think I'm actually hanging out with Kyle here in like 10 days, couple weeks.
Nice.
So I'm excited for that. So go Kyle. But yeah, right. You've got Kyle. You got maybe 1 or 2 others. I have a feeling that's how it's always been. It's a fairly affluent bunch. I mean, I think generally outside of the 2 token people, whose story is that they're poor on each season, the poorest people on there are just because people are students, and that's, I guess that's part of Survivor. There's also the reality of having to take 2 months off of work. And amount they will give you
more reporters and stuff nowadays, because you're getting people who are literally like Sam Phelan works for the Titans. What the hell's going on in May and June with the Titans? The draft is over.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, at least when I was on, you can request a very small nominal advance on your prize money before you leave. But like, it's not enough to pay 1 month of rent. So you cannot go on Survivor if you don't have some means. And I think you see that. But yeah, I think everyone is just comfortable. Everyone kind of has an idea of who they want to be. So people can talk better. I think also, I think what Adam, if we can switch gears still while talking about casting a little bit, but if you think about like what Adam does, Adam Klein, where he's coaching people and things like that, like I think that's amazing in a certain sense. because you truly have some people that don't know how to package the interesting parts about themselves or the compelling parts about their story. And that's amazing, right? Because one thing I always struggled with is like, my videos were good enough to catch their attention, but they weren't good enough to seal the deal, and it took several iterations of that. And luckily, I made it through far enough the first time.
Did I freeze or did Bradley freeze? Somebody tell me in the chat. Okay.
Phil?
I think my Wi-Fi just like cut for a second. Was that
Yeah,
me?
you've frozen a couple of times. I don't think it's me, but it could be.
I've been hearing you the entire time, though. Nope, they said he froze.
Oh.
So then I just sat here looking like an asshole.
Okay,
okay, but
well,
you
at
said
any rate, right.
Well, anyway, wait.
So you had right. I had
you made it far enough through.
Yeah, I made it far enough through, right? That then at that point.
Oh no, it happened again. All right, it happened again. I'm gonna make sure that it's him. I'm just gonna keep talking. I'll keep going. Bradley's internet. This is what he started talking about Rich, and then I guess all of a sudden they decided we're gonna cut his internet. So yeah, Mr. Panda says I'm still here. I'll shoot Bradley a text and let him know. It's the sentence of they don't want to hear about his casting process. That's really what's happening here. They're worried about his casting process. So, come on, Bradley. Come on back, buddy. Anyway, we were having a good conversation. We were doing a great job. All right, they're saying it's you. They're saying it's you.
They're saying it's me.
Yeah.
Oh no. No, sorry guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what
you
got
keep getting
cut out.
ready to start that sentence of like, I made it far enough through, and then it just cuts. I also got a text from Brandon Donlin that said Bradley is an elite pull. So I want to let you know, Brandon.
Hey, thanks, Brandon. No, I was just gonna say I made it far enough through that they had a vested interest. My casting producer did in telling me what I needed in the video, where you don't get that when you don't make it far enough.
Mhm.
And so that's where, Adam is great about packaging someone that doesn't have the self-awareness of why they're interesting, and he can help them package that. But on the flip side, I think you get someone that knows how to play the casting game. They can help someone that's possibly not interesting enough look interesting enough to get through casting. And then you end up with a piss poor character on TV.
Yeah. No, I totally hear what you're saying with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's where part of the anger towards Adam came from production last couple seasons, where it was like Adam is maybe helping people get through that really aren't being their authentic. He might be helping them be their more authentic selves, but from production standpoint, they're like, damn, we didn't want to actually put this person on because they're not delivering once they get there. I still think what Adam does is great, and I don't think that Adam should have gotten the hate.
No, for sure.
But
I completely agree with that. I'm just saying, I think there's two sides to that coin, where he ends up getting people that we really, really want to have on the show that wouldn't get on otherwise, but then also people that, should have fallen through the cracks. And with people that are more comfortable in front of a camera, just in general, you're going to end up with people that look and talk a little flashier than someone else. It's going to make you through. But like you say, it takes some people a while to warm up on the show with like Coach. Well, what big characters are we missing out on because they're just not as compelling holding their cell phone up in front of them?
Right here, dude. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. You've never had a bad time when in the same room as me.
You're very compelling, Phil.
Thanks, dude. Just say it again. Say it. Keep saying it. Shoot me a text. Say it again. Let's go. Let's go.
I'll remind you tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, I need that text. I need that text to wake up to. Bradley sends me the text at 1:00 a.m. my time last night. So what do I need to do to prep for tomorrow? I'm like, dude, you're gonna get an answer at 7:45 or 8:00 in the morning. Like, what are we doing, buddy?
Yeah, I had the day.
Now I want to wake up though tomorrow to a nice text message. Anyway, all right, so that the forced hands thing, I think we all just agree, like it doesn't work. Nobody likes it. Mike Bloom tweeted about it. The players don't like it. The fans don't like it. It takes control out of the players' hands. It's really annoying. And I don't know why they keep going back to it. I don't feel like it's ever worked. And I understand, like you made the point of maybe you just don't have the compelling, but you got to trust the cast. And honestly, we see, okay, so I was rewatching Cook Islands recently. You go back and rewatch Cook Islands. Cook Islands has Exile Island on it. Once Yule finds the idol, they're like, well, You went to Exile Island, and that meant we didn't follow you that episode because we didn't even bother sending a camera person out there because we already knew the idol had been found. Like, you get a couple episodes in a row where you don't even go to Exile Island. And that's okay because you can fill the episode with other stuff. If they go on a journey and it doesn't work out, don't show it. Who cares? If it doesn't actually have an impact on the game, don't show it.
It's kind of like, the bad secret that a lot of these challenges where it's like best 2 out of 3. In real life, it's like best, 4 out of 6 or something, and then they just splice together the ones that are more interesting. Do the same thing with the advantages. It's still at the core, it is a TV show. It is entertainment. As long as it's still fair to the people on the ground playing the game or fair as it can be, what does it matter? It doesn't. Let's make a good TV show.
Yeah.
Is always my opinion, right? It's as frustrating as it can be as a player. That's the truth of it. You have to tell a compelling story to the people at home, and they're putting together what they have to work with. And that's hard when you're on the show and you're the star of your own show in your head, and then you see it on TV and you're like, oh, well, that's not how I remember it. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, this is entertainment. This is not. This is.
Oh, it froze. So I'll start talking because he just froze. But I think that at the end of the day, you have an editing bay. This isn't actually reality TV. This isn't the live streams from Big Brother where everything is just, we are going to have somebody who is watching 24 hours a day all the time, and there's nothing you can do about it. That doesn't happen with Survivors. You can always edit. So if something sucks, edit it out. But don't force the players' hands. Trust your cast. And if your cast isn't delivering in the way that you were hoping they were going to deliver, then you can edit that out. Like, you have that ability. You don't have to show anything. You got to show us the immunity challenge. You got to show us the tribal councils. That's literally all we need to see. Those are the only things that are absolutely important on the show. And yeah, so I just think that is something that Survivor needs to keep in mind. You don't have to manufacture entertainment because you're ultimately going to get to manufacture entertainment anyway. Now he got up and he's walking around and he finally cuts back, and it's when he gets up to move. So hopefully he doesn't do anything offensive.
Hang on. I'm trying to fix the Wi-Fi here. It just told me that it went out. So I unplugged the satellite, and hopefully it'll go off with the other Wi-Fi better.
Okay. Well, that's all good because
let me know. So I'm sorry.
We're going to move on. We'll move on to the last little topic here that I want to do, which is winner potential. And I think the only season that you picked the winner correctly for after it filmed was Ghost Island, because you knew. I think that was pretty much the only one, right? How are you feeling about the people they're putting on the show? Do you feel like they're putting only people who can win the game at this point? Or do you think that they're still putting in some people where it's like there's 4 or 5 people that have no shot of winning this game from the moment they step on the island?
So I think I have a fairly controversial opinion of this. I think there's a lot of people actually that don't really have a true shot of winning the game. I think unless you were to play this brilliant strategic game and just school everyone, maybe anybody has a shot to win, regardless of where they come from in life and what they do. But I still think at the end of the day, my belief is that it's very, very hard to convince people to give someone $1 million that they think doesn't need it or comes from a background that they don't need the money. There's still, I will defend this to the very end. I think there's still a level of who is deserving, even if it's subconscious with the people out there, that comes into play. So I do think it's going to be hard to give it to Krishan. He's a doctor. It'd be hard to give it to Genevieve. She's a corporate attorney. These are people, I don't know what firm Genevieve works at, but she likely makes half of the Survivor winnings as a mid-level associate a year. You're just not going to give someone $1 million that has that, I don't think, unless there's some real great reason. I think even with the bigger characters, like Rome, for instance, I think he's just like, he's a knucklehead. I don't think even if he's entertaining, when you're on the show, you're not voting for who's entertaining. We were never going to give Chris Noble $1 million. Because at the end of the day, if he's that much of a clown, he is truly annoying to be around, right? You have to remember at the core, you are living with these people in an uncomfortable situation, and it gets old. The shtick gets old. I mean, I was with Chris for, I think, 7 days, And he was funny for like the first half of those, maybe day 4 or 5. And then finally it was like, okay, I've had enough. There is no off button on this kid. And he's been through the repertoire. So now we're just getting it over again. And so, yeah, I firmly believe there are still a lot of people that cannot win this game.
Yeah, I think you're right too. And I think that's something that people like, Jeff, somebody in the comments here said, St. Cliffo, Jeff told us at the start of 46 that there are people who can't win. And I always feel like that they should be putting people on the show who can win, but also there need to be people who are just pure entertainment. And it has to be like one or the other. And I do think what's interesting though about like this cast, Sue Smay is somebody who you would immediately look at and say she can't win Survivor. Like we've never seen her type win. She's not going to win. And then she starts talking. You start seeing.
I mean, Tina won.
You say, yeah, but Tina was 17 years younger than what Sue is.
You wouldn't know it from looking at her.
You would. You never would have known. But the point is, Sue comes out and she starts playing the game. And you say, oh, shit, there's some game here. And even Rome said, I'm going to play an aggressive, brash style of game.
He also thinks he could have been a Grammy-winning rapper or an NBA player is what he said.
No, he said aspire to be an NBA player. He clarified that on our show last time. But here's my thing to you. Do you think that playing the Rome style game and being more aggressive and just being in people's faces of, I'm going to go look for idols, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it doesn't matter. Is that a winning strategy? Is that something that you can win the game with, even if you're not Rome? Like if you, let's say Teeny came out and played that type of game and just let people know, I'm looking for idols. I mean, Russell Hantz did this in Samoa. He was reaching up trees and they're saying, what are you doing? Oh, I'm looking for an idol. Do you think that this is ever a winning game?
I think it depends who you're with, right? You see, let's take the Yellow Tribe, for instance, right? Where they were all going to go look and then they're babysitting Andy and it's kind of a group thing. When you've got a tribe of everyone that's like, we're going to sit here and we're not going to split up and we're not going to look for idols. If you're on that tribe and you go look for idols, I think it shoots you in the foot. If you're on a tribe that doesn't have those hard defined where everybody is saying we're not going to do this and then you're the person running off, then it's not necessarily as bad. I just think I stick by the strategy that it's hard to play. It's dangerous to play too hard, too fast, too early. Mm-hmm. But you get in situations where you have no choice. To bring this back to Ghost Island, you get on Malolo, you have the numbers. What choice do I have? I was given a job. I was supposed to vote out the original Malolos, and I was very good at it, but I didn't really have a choice. It was kind of either me go home or I get rid of them. And so I was thrust into a position where I had to make moves and had to participate in vote outs that kind of blew any semblance of cover that I had.
Yeah.
You don't generally get to pick your situation. Now you can truly blow it up, but you don't always have a choice kind of in, can I play undercover or can I not?
Yeah.
But even people that are playing undercover, right? Unless you're truly not doing anything, which there were definitely a couple people on my season that played like that, everybody's doing something. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in that if you think someone's not doing something, it's just because they're not doing something with you.
With you, exactly.
But they're still doing it with somebody else. And that's a lesson I didn't learn quite fast enough.
And so far, that's what I was making. That's what I was making the point of at the beginning of this episode. I think there's 3 people who didn't put that together fast enough on this season. And that was Asia, John, and TK. And that's why they're gone, because there were certain people. Yeah. TK said it at Tribal Council. Who's had a conversation with Sue? Well, Caroline has, and Gabe has. Tiana has. Really, everybody but you.
I mean, it's not a way to get people to go to TK for a second. It's not a way to get people to want to align with you or not vote you out when you start explaining to them how to play the game of Survivor. Mm-hmm. Never a good look. But I do have to say, as someone else who said they wanted to play like Boston Rob, I did appreciate when Rome suggested, what did he say? He was going to be the godson.
He's the godson.
Yeah. Get in line, bro. Welcome to the tribe.
It's so good. I love it. He's the godson.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's hilarious. I also really appreciated how he was sitting in his confessionals this episode.
Did you see what the reason was?
A totally random thing.
Did you see what the reason was? He tweeted it out.
I did, but I forgot.
He was in honor of Sean Rector's laying down confessional during Marquesas.
Yeah.
So he wanted to lean, dude. He knows, and we talked about this earlier. You want to get screen time in Survivor, do what Rome's doing. You're going to get screen time every time. You can be the first person out. You're going to get a lot of content. And people will say, why am I not being shown? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you don't want to blow up your game for the sake of getting screen time. But Rome went out there he wants to win. I don't think he can win, but he also wants to be the star of the show. You want to be the star of the show, say, I'm going to do this leaning over thing, and I'm going to be like, I'm not giving you food. I'm not doing. You're going to get screen time 100 times out of 100. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. Yep.
So
now, what I would be curious to know is where his trying to get screen time and trying to be entertaining stops, and where his lack of self-awareness begins. Because I'm sure it is not just him trying to be a character. I'm sure there's an element of he cannot turn it off either. I mean, look at somebody, right? He's a commentator, right? He's just used to being a clown. It's where if we dive into politics without diving into politics, part of the reason why it's hard to look away from Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, is he had so long on TV to realize what makes TV. It's like that when if you were to go back and play Survivor a second time, or you're a returnee, you know what makes TV and what doesn't make the cut. And you can play to what you think is going to make the cut. And then it's more interesting. And so I think you do have an element of that with Rome, where he is used to what elicits a reaction, what makes people watch, what keeps the TV on. And he's doing a great job with it.
He is. So who do you actually think can win this season then, as we approach this hour mark?
It's curious. I think Sue's got a shot. I think she's had a couple of comments about winning.
I think you're just smitten. I don't even think it's that. I think you're just smitten.
Well, yeah, don't threaten me with a cougar. But Kyle, I think, could possibly do it if he can pull himself out from the slight, hole that he's found himself in, just in choosing his alliance poorly at the beginning. But I think if you recover from that and you last a few days post that, you can usually use a swap or a merge to your advantage and turn over a new leaf. It's not necessarily a bad place to be in, having not enough allies, unless you're going to tribal with just those people that you're not allies with. But in the event of a swap or a merge, it's not a terrible thing to be kind of the free agent, because you don't have these bonds where people are going to feel so upset if you turn your back on them, and everybody wants another number. So he's not necessarily in a bad position. I find Sam to be pretty interesting and entertaining. I think he's playing a pretty smart game while still coming across kind of as the bro, which is interesting. I think usually we don't get that archetype presented with quite so much savviness. Although I will say I have serious questions about both of them being engaged. And not to each other.
She's not engaged. Sierra is not engaged.
I mean, as someone that has had an island relationship or two, there's no denying there's some island chemistry there.
I said it last night on the podcast. I said it last night on the podcast. I said Sam wouldn't have asked me if watermelon was my favorite the same way he asked Sierra if watermelon was her favorite. There was a different tone that was used there that I would not be used. It would not. If Sam said that to me, I'd be like, oh shit. I gotta make sure my wedding ring's still on, because I'm pretty sure Sam's hitting on me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Also, the segment where he has not tried any food is beautiful. It was just very special. It's those moments, right? It's the bed was uncomfortable, and then we find out that Sam has pretty much had protein powder, chicken breast, and probably broccoli for his entire life.
He just goes through the Wendy's drive-thru. That's all he's doing. What are you talking about?
He's not eating fruit. That much we know. But I'm willing to bet Sierra was giving him some pineapple at Ponderosa at some point.
Wow.
So,
all right.
But it's
getting steamy. All right. Anyway, let's do a quick roll through. You can give as short or long answers as you want, but let's just roll through some of the cast. Just tell me if you think they can win or not after you've seen 3 episodes. Okay. So we'll start over on that yellow tribe. You already said Sam you think could win. Do you think Sierra can win or no?
I don't think she can't win, but I think her portrayal on the show has to change. I think she's being seen as the sidekick, but not the sidekick in like a savvy way of I know I should hitch myself to Sam. She just looks smitten, and kind of like a puppy. But I think she's well spoken, and there's no reason why it couldn't turn around.
Andy.
No, he can't win.
Okay.
He,
We hadn't mentioned
I mean,
Andy all night. We're an hour into the podcast.
I will speak to this as someone that when I went on the show, right, I had been a fan forever, never actually thought I would get picked, was excited to go on the show. Like, I'd never been to the gym, okay, before I found out I was probably going to be on the show. And when I decided to show up to the gym because I was so worried about embarrassing myself physically on the show, I could not bench just the bar with no weights on it, right? So it could have been bad. And so when I see someone like Andy, right, and he's so worried it's all falling apart, I can empathize with that because in the week of it wasn't really an issue once we got to Fiji and we're together and then you're just around the people and you start to get more comfortable with them even though you're not talking to them. But it's the month before that, can I make friends? Can I interact with these people? Are these people going to like me? What happens if I get on the show and everyone hates me? Or, and it's these things. And so I see that and I feel for him because, those were my concerns. Now, I feel fortunate that they didn't present themselves to me in the game. I felt like especially within the Navidi tribe, my original tribe, I felt like I was able to make bonds quickly and not so much on Malolo, but but it was fine. And then I did okay, and it turns out that I was okay at the puzzles and things like that, and so I felt okay. But for Andy, like it could have just as easily gone the other way, or gone the way of Brandon, where it's like I am not doing well at this, and you understand the implications, right? Especially as a fan, because you've sat on the couch and there's a possibility things are not going to go well. And when things don't go well, you as a fan, exactly how they're not going to go well on TV. Yep. As they're happening, you can see what's going to be on the show. I mean, those are the situations where there's no doubt as to what is going to make the cut and what isn't. And it's just not good. So I feel for him, but I don't think he can win. No, I just don't see, I don't think his self-awareness is high enough that even if he becomes comfortable, he can convince anyone that he should win. Yeah. I think that's going to be his problem. You can always turn around from the position he's in. I just don't know if he has the materials to turn around into a winning game. But you never know.
What about I'd be skeptical, though. The other two on that tribe that seem like they're probably in the minority with Rachel and Annika?
Rachel gives good confessionals, so she seems perceptive. I think she could win. Annika, I don't think can win. Just based off of what we're seeing. As someone who got a little bit bossy at one point when I was on the show, nobody likes when you're bossy.
Never said that happened. He said that never happened.
Yeah, nobody appreciates that. And it's not good. How many days in are they? Are we at like day 6
or something like that? Yeah,
6, 8. Not great when you're already ready to kill people and losing your patience that early, right? I mean, I feel like I held it together to like 15, 16, and then it was like, okay, now I've had enough of you knuckleheads. But like that early, not being able to hold it together, not a great sign for Annika.
And let's jump over to Blue. You already said you think Sue and Kyle can win. What do you think about the other three over there are Tiana, Gabe, and Caroline?
I don't think Gabe has the self-awareness to win in terms of what's going on. I think he's an interesting character and he's doing okay in the game. And again, right, this is all what we see from the edit. So I don't want anyone to come at me. Although you can. I'm willing to play ball.
They're going to keep shrinking your mouth, dude. It's going to happen.
They will quickly learn I'm willing to play ball. But I just don't see it from what I see on TV. With him, there's two more, right?
Caroline and Tiana. Tiana didn't get a confessional last time.
So I think Caroline's being kind of billed as Sue's +1. In my head, I think the likely scenario, right, is that Caroline gets dragged to the end with Sue and Sue wins. That's how I would see what Caroline's character feels like. You've got Sue giving the immunity idol to Caroline to hold and things like that. And she just feels like she's the assistant. And then the other girl, I forget her name.
Tiana.
I don't know why. I know exactly who she is, but I'm terrible with names. She could potentially win. She might just be a little feisty for the players in the game. Which,
She's on the wrong tribe, I feel like. Honestly, I feel like
great
she's
thing
been
for
rebelling.
like a person in life,
Mhm.
not necessarily the best thing in Survivor. It's you need to be opinionated, but you know when to shut your opinions off, or you know when to be aggressive and not to be. And I just don't know if she's quite that nuanced.
And then,
Otherwise, I think she's doing good.
yeah, I think honestly at this point,
I
she
don't
just
think
needs.
she's playing a bad game.
Mhm.
Just looking at, I think over the course of the game, the luck of the draw and things like that can only get you so far, and then you have to have a bit of uh, you know vibes with the people that are left, and I think that could end up being her problem.
I agree with that. All right, let's jump over to the last tribe. We already talked about Rome. You don't think he can win, but you think he's great TV. We
Yeah, oh
got
yeah, for sure.
we got Teeny, Keyshawn, Genevieve, and Saul.
Um, we don't know a whole lot about Genevieve. We don't know a whole lot about Saul. I thought so. Saul's got potential, right? Because he was fighting Andy. Was he fighting Andy? No,
No, he's
Rome.
fighting Rome.
Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fighting Rome about the swimming part, and he stuck with it a long time, right? I mean, I got to give him credit for that. So he's definitely like he's got some feistiness to him that could turn out to be good, and he could end up being interesting. I just don't think we've seen quite enough of that yet. So I don't really have an opinion either way. There's nothing that tells me he can't win, other than we haven't seen a whole lot of him. But at the same time, there's nothing that's really made me feel like he can, or
Mhm.
he might be setting up to win. Um, Teeny, okay, she feels fifth place,
Dude, that's
like a
literally
good
what I
character,
texted
good
somebody early
gamer,
today. I think I
but
texted Alexa
it
that.
it feels it feels like the slot where you play really well and you're a strategic person, but like you fizzle out.
Or don't even it might not even be fizzle out. You just eventually get on the wrong side of the numbers. And it's just like I
Fizzle,
can't get
yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just like fizzle out with you're not suddenly less strategic. It's like yes, you run out of options.
Hmm.
Yeah, yep. And then
Keyshawn is
who
the
else are
only
we
other one.
missing? Keyshawn. He I think he definitely could win, right? You saw a little bit of that. He got the moment where it was I just learned to swim, but I'm gonna do it. And then Jeff's like, this is why we apply and we love Survivor, man. Which he never would have done that back in the day, by the way. It's
No.
grown, he's grown very soft and friendly.
He's like praying
He
somebody's gonna drown
he
back in the day
was
so the ratings go up, right? He's like, Bradley, stay down. You're on a
completely,
yeah.
completely. I mean, he's not gonna let you literally drown, but he's gonna let you flounder for
I
a hell
mean,
of a long time.
Tasha
And then
almost
he's definitely
drowned.
not gonna be like, hang on, buddy, are you okay? No, it's like you're being a weak ass. Suck it up, dive down there. You're on Survivor. Come on, man. It's not going to be Andy, are you okay? We're going to take care of you. It's okay. You're still in the game. Before he'd have been like, if you're willing to give up right there, you deserve to go home, and things like that. So he's he's a cool dude, Jeff. But he's definitely like not overly loving, and he seems like all of a sudden just to be all up with the emotions and things like that, and it's a little goofy.
He Gordon had a great tweet yesterday where he said it used to be uh come on, this is Survivor, you got to dig deep, what's going on? Now it's yeah, you all lost, you have no shot. But are you okay? Is everything good? Like it's
Yeah,
like it feels like
yeah,
that's what we got because yesterday he's like, "Oh, I'm already saying Lavo is going to tribal council." It's like he would never do that in the older seasons, but he'd also never do what he did for Andy in the older
no,
seasons. So yeah, it's interesting. I think Keyshawn
yeah,
can win too. Keyshawn's been the
yeah,
one who has
for sure.
probably surprised me the most out of anybody on the cast thus far. And I think Keyshawn and Teeny, I think one of them is going to be sitting at final three. I just don't know which.
And I don't think it's going to be Teeny.
That means it would be Keyshawn, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I can see it for him. I think he's good. He's also well positioned. It feels like, at least from the edit, what we're seeing is Teeny leading the charge, but he is right behind her, knows what's happening as it's happening, and
Mhm.
is a participant in it. But we're being shown from her angle how it's happening, and that seems to be the perception of the other tribe members. Good place to be for him right now,
Mhm.
because at any point he can just outmaneuver her when the time is right, and he's been with it the whole time. So I
Yeah.
do. I think he's in a pretty good spot.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, but I'm glad we got through that
I think
whole
so.
thing. We said 45 minutes to an hour. We had 9 minutes of you frozen. That's why we're at an hour and 9. That's all. It's just a quick 9 minutes of you being.
It's true. Hopefully people didn't have to listen to me say the same thing 3 times over again. Hopefully I truly was frozen.
I think it was literally just cut out. We have the what's nice is though I have the live recording now, so I can see what your camera was doing the whole time. So when you're
okay.
F this, I can't stand it. When you start throwing stuff, you're smashing. I'm going to have all that. I'll make that the highlight reel for.
Yeah, had I known I was truly frozen, I would have grabbed another drink. But.
Yeah, exactly. You should have taken advantage of it. Here's the last question I'll give you then. Jayburn Aquatic, that's not the one. Jayburn Aquatic. So Bradley, who are your top 3 winner potentials right now?
Ooh. I'm going to go Sue number 1. I think she's really with it. And I think when you have a cast that is that young, you cannot discount the fact that she will be seen as a more mature mother figure, even if she doesn't play like that. She seems like she might be a good combination of making people feel comforted, but at the same time being cutthroat, because I think that's usually the thing that her archetype, if you will, struggles with, is the how do you mesh the caring mom with the strategic threat, and we don't seem to be getting that from the edit. So I think we've got her. We've got Krishan. I think is going to be my second choice, and from there, I'm gonna have to go with Kyle. Yeah, I think he's being positioned with a lot of backstory. He's getting, we're seeing a lot of things from his perspective. So that probably either means he's going home next week or he's going to last a while.
I mean, we'll see what happens with his lost vote.
He's either long or not long for the game.
I do agree. I feel like if he can overcome the fact that he doesn't have a vote and it looks like he's on the side, but like nobody dislikes Kyle. The only one who dislikes him right now is Sue because he voted for Sue. But I do feel like Sue could be convinced by Caroline or by Gabe of like, look, Kyle's fine. Like, let's just keep Kyle. And I think I like Kyle a lot. His even demeanor has stayed even throughout what has been a pretty tumultuous start to the season for him. So, you have anything else you want to do? Say anything else going on in life?
I don't think so. We said we were going to discuss a topic at the very beginning, but I don't remember what it was at this point. I don't. So unless anybody in the chat does,
we hit the 3 that I said, right? So we at least did that, and we talked about Asia. So we're good.
Some hot takes, Bradley. I feel like this is my most well-behaved podcast.
We don't need hot takes
to date.
We're doing great. We're doing great. I don't need hot takes. I don't need text messages from people saying, what the hell did Bradley say? I don't need that. We're going to
listen. If you're going to text Phil asking what the hell did they say, just text me. Phil has my number. And then you can give me a piece of your mind. I don't mind.
Yeah, there you go. And also, Sue, if you want Bradley's number, I have it because clearly Bradley's just smitten.
In case she ever wants to go flying or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, flying over here. I'm right by the airport, too.
This was a great conversation. I'm so happy we were able to do this. Loved having you back, man. It's been a long time. Of course. I love talking.
Yeah, it's always good to be back, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody become a patron, patreon.com/thespecialist. We got a whole bunch of content going on over there. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. If I have to keep selling on the patron stuff, just go check out the page. There's so much up there. Jayburn Aquatics said, are the power rankings up? Yes, this updated scores for power rankings and fantasy game are both up for the patrons on Real TV Fantasy. So we got plenty going on. I'm going to be back on Sunday with Drew from season 45. So that'll be a fun one. That'll be for predictions and power rankings. And then I'll be back on Wednesday. And I actually think I might be with Alexa on Wednesday because there's a Bryson Wendell event in LA. And if Blake and Will don't go to that, I might as well just kick them off, right? So here we go. But everybody, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. Bradley, a pleasure as always, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Later, guys.